Please be seated, and as I welcome those who are watching by live stream, I'm glad to see all of you this morning. A number of years ago, our youngest was involved with cotillion. Some of you know that that's a program to teach young boys and girls what we might call etiquette or social manners. They're given lessons about table etiquette, about dancing lessons, to the boys about bowing and the girls about curtsying. It seems old-fashioned, but all of our girls went through this, and towards the end of our third daughter's year, they had a father-daughter ball. I was glad to hear that the main dance in the middle of this, the father-daughter dance, was a waltz, because contrary to critics, I actually could hold my own with waltzing. I'm glad we didn't do much else, actually. After the dance, one of the lady chaperones came to us and said how nice the dance was. We agreed. And then she said to us, "I wish my father had done that." And I said, "You wish your father had danced with you?" She said, "No, I wish my father had loved me." My daughter and I swallowed hard. We remembered that there are people who grow up in this world who have never received parental love. Jesus must have known that about us. So he tells this amazing story about the love of God for all of us, no matter what we've done, what we will do, who we've been, and who we will become. We now call it the parable of the prodigal son. This amazing story about a young boy who leaves with the family inheritance, who goes to a far country and is involved with what's called dissolute living. We can only imagine what that looks like. He squanders his birthright, his family name, all of his resources. He's in a pigsty, and he comes to himself. Decides he wants to return home, expects recrimination. When he's a long way off, we hear, the father sees him and runs to him in lavish love and forgiveness, then says, "Get the family robe, get the family ring, kill the fatted calf. I'm going to restore this, my son, to full part of the family. We're going to celebrate this amazing grace that comes to us in this story to tell us about God's love, no matter how good or how bad we've been. We're welcomed home by grace and by forgiveness." We know the story well. But in the middle of this amazing story, there's a sticking point. Doesn't it seem like every time there's a good narrative, there seems to be a sticking point? In the middle of a good family reunion, there's the relative who drinks too much. Or in the middle of a family dinner, we learn about the daughter's terrible divorce, or the son's vocation that's run south. In the middle of this grand story, this parable of Jesus, there is a sticking point. And it's the elder brother. The elder brother. Whenever I prepare to preach on the prodigal son, this is always the sticking point. This older boy. We know him too. We know him well. This is the one who has made everything work in our world. In fact, I wish Luke's gospel had an extra chapter, 15b, we might call it, to bring good news to the older children of the world, the people who have made this church work, the people who have held up institutions. This person, by the way, would be the rector of this church, or the senior warden, or the head of the altar guild, or the chair of the finance committee. This person would be on the plaques around Bethesda. They built this, they provided this, they held up this. When everything was falling apart, It was the older child who came to save. He's the one, she's the one who stays, keeps their nose clean, follows the rules, makes A's in school, is the president of the senior class, for heaven's sake. Passes all of the exams, achieves all the degrees, and then looks after society. When these people come to me for confession, by the way, I have to say, let me just say, it seems rather boring. This is the kind of things they say for confession. Well, you know, I'm coaching my child's soccer team this year because there weren't enough adults to volunteer to be coaches. You know, I'm serving over at the food pantry, but I've taken an extra day because there's not enough volunteers. And oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, I'm working on the finance committee and we're doing fairly well, but we've got a few challenges ahead of us. And then there'd be a pause, and then that person would say, do you think it's okay if I don't serve on the stewardship committee this year? Now, let me be honest. I say, is that it? That's your confession? I can do a lot better than that. Let's change chairs. We know these people. Very often, you've been this person, and I've been this person. There's a glowing side to the older child in the parable of the prodigal son, but there's a dark side. There's a soft underbelly to the older child. We might say the eldest child syndrome. Can't you see him outside that house? That boy has come home. He hears music. He asks, what's going on? He hears about this rogue, this young boy who squandered the family inheritance, ruined the family name, and dares to come back here to receive grace and forgiveness. We might say this is a stomp moment. Are you kidding me? I've been looking after this place all this time. There's a dark side, a peevish resentment, anger welling up inside of him, jealousy. But that father who ran out to greet that young boy is the same one with lavish love and forgiveness and grace to come outside and to be with that older child. I want to imagine with you for a moment that the conversation is just a little longer. What's the father saying to that older child and to all of us when we have that syndrome? One of the things I think the father is saying to him and to all of us is, I want you to remember that your life is a gift. I can hear him say, do you know that? Do you know that in your heart of hearts, that every morning you wake up, your life is an incredible gift. You didn't buy it. You cannot earn it. You can't achieve it. You definitely didn't deserve it. And yet, God, in amazing grace, wanted you to be part of this world. You. And that when you see your life as a gift, I can hear that father saying to the boy, your life is different. Every day you live your life as a gift, it's different. You become generous, gracious, and you want to offer yourself for the sake of other people. I can also hear that father saying, I also want you to remember that you need God. You cannot outgood God. You can't come to grace by making the A's, as much as that's a good thing. You need God. Because when you've put yourself, I can hear him say, when you put yourself in the middle of your universe, your life falls apart. You become angry and resentful and jealous. You become less than yourselves. I want you to be your full self. How does that happen? I can hear the Father saying, by putting God in the middle of your life, in the middle of your orbit. And when we do, our life works. We have a greater vista of love. We have greater understanding. And that leads to the third thing I think the Father is saying to him and to all of us with this syndrome. And that is, your life is not over. It's not finished. Your journey is only halfway through. You're half-baked, I can hear the Father saying to the boy. I want you to keep asking questions. I want you to keep growing. I want you to keep probing, seeking. One of the syndromes of the older child is to think that his journey is over. I've been baptized and confirmed. I went and got the degrees. I've done the job. I don't have anything else to do except to look after the place. I can hear the Father saying, I want you to keep an eagerness, a seeking, questioning, growing in who you are and what the faith is, because you're not finished. I'm not finished with you, and I don't want you to be finished with yourself. I can hear the Father then saying, now come on in. Come on in. I want you to celebrate with us, because this brother of yours is home again. Steven Spielberg's version of The Color Purple, the movie version, has a very poignant epic towards the end of the movie. There's a nightclub singer named Suge. She's a glamorous sort of cutaway, salty in a way. She's left home. She's gone her own way, sowed her wild oats, we might say. She's a nightclub singer in a ramshackled bar, and you can tell that she's had a long Saturday night because this scene is on Sunday morning. She's sort of hungover, and she's beginning to croon. She's trying to make her way around the ramshackled bar. Across the waterway is a church, and her father is the moralistic minister of the church. He cast her off a long time ago. Said she damaged the family. She went her own way. She's immoral, and she's not mine anymore. So it's on Sunday morning. It's church time. She begins to move around her bar. She begins to croon. I've got something to say, she sings. I've got something to say, she sings again. Then the choir sings antiphonally. God's got something to say. She sings, I've got something to say. The choir then responds, God's got something to say. And she's compelled to move across the water. She comes in the front door of the church, begins to come down the middle aisle. Her father is preaching at a big pulpit in the middle. He's preaching on, guess what? The parable of the prodigal son. She comes right into the middle, and she looks at her father, who has cast her off years before as being the immoral waif. She sings to her father then, even sinners got souls. Even sinners got souls. And then there's this deafening quiet. It's all quiet. He looks at her with a stern look. What he realizes in that moment is that he is not like the father in the parable. He has become the older sibling. It catches him short. He's chastened by the moment. He realizes, I wanted to be the benevolent, loving, forgiving father, but I've become the oldest child. There's a long moment, and then the liturgy continues. And during the final hymn of the Sunday morning, she goes to her father and she takes him by the neck and gives him a big bear hug. He hugs her back. They both begin to tear up. She, realizing that she's come home, she's tired of wandering. She's so grateful to receive grace and forgiveness. He realizes that he has been this peevish, resentful, jealous, angry, older sibling. And it breaks him open. And he begins to realize the great benevolence of grace and God's unbounding love and forgiveness. They both begin to weep in the aisle while the congregation and choir are singing. So she said to me a long time ago, I wish my father had done that. You wish that he had danced with you? No. I wish that he had loved me. Jesus tells this amazing story about God's love and forgiveness, no matter who we've been, where we've been, what we've done. When the young son arrived back home, he runs out to greet him and puts the family robe on him, puts the family ring. Come, let's celebrate. And then he goes outside and he meets up with his other boy. And he offers just as much lavish love and forgiveness. And he says to that boy, I've always been with you. And you are always with me. And everything that I have is yours. Amen.